Hey, what's up guys, this is Tristan, and recently I read the 8-volume manga, Welcome to the NHK, so let's talk about it. So the main character of Welcome to the NHK is a guy named Sato, and he's a hikikomori. And this basically means someone who's a recluse and someone who's a shut-in, and Sato is basically the embodiment of what everyone doesn't want to be. I mean, he's a drug addict, he's lazy, he's unemployed, and if you can think of a characteristic that you don't want, I mean, Sato probably has it. So one day a Christian study group is going around knocking on people's doors, talking about the Bible, and they come to Sato's door, and one of the people in the study group is a girl named Misaki. And Misaki later promises Sato that she can rid him of being a hikikomori, and she can bring him back into society as a regular functioning person. Now that's basically the main story for Welcome to the NHK, and I've gotta say, this is one of the most weird series I've ever read. And based on the main premise, you may not expect it to be super weird, but it's pretty wacky. I mean, let me just explain the main title. Because early on in the series, Sato's going on a big drug hallucination trip, and he sees all of his kitchen appliances talking to him, and he comes to the crazy conclusion that there's a major conspiracy going on, that the Japanese broadcast system, NHK, is trying to turn Japanese men into hikikomoris by showing them anime. And that's not even an over-exaggeration. If anything, it's an under-exaggeration, because, I mean, that's introduced in the first chapter, and it's pretty wacky. Now, something I find really interesting about this really wacky concept is it's not even really a subplot. I mean, when it was first introduced, I thought it was going to be the main concept of the series, but it's really only introduced about 6 times throughout the series. It's really only briefly mentioned, and I'm honestly not even sure if Sato himself in the series really believed that. I think it was just something that he sort of turned to every once in a while, but it's more to serve as a metaphor for how out of touch he is in society rather than being an actual subplot, and I found that pretty interesting. Now, when the series first starts off, it's basically a dark comedy slash drama series, more comedy than anything, but as it goes on, it shifts into more of a depressing series that relies more on the characters' thoughts and feelings than anything else, and I found this pretty interesting. I wasn't sure how they were going to deal with this mixture of comedy and serious stuff, because that's not always easy to pull off, but NHK did this especially well, and I was actually pretty impressed with it for the most part. Admittedly though, I do think that there were some scenes that could have been handled better in this aspect. I think that sometimes when it tried to mix serious with comedy too much, it did get jumbled up and it sort of lost track of where it was going. And there's something that happens in chapter 2 that deals with some pretty serious subject matter in a pretty comedic way, and I really think that could have been handled a lot better. Besides that, I think it's pretty well done for the most part. And the really obscene moments in Welcome to the NHK serve more as a way to show how horrible and off the deep end Sato is. And even though, yeah, it could have been handled a lot better in certain aspects, I do think that overall, it's a pretty good way to show how Sato's character is, and it doesn't really glorify the issues. As for the artwork in the series, I definitely think that it's serviceable. It's not really my favorite type of artwork. I usually like artwork with a little bit more detail or a little bit more style to it. For the most part, the artwork does its job. It's not incredible for the most part, it's not the most detailed, but it's especially good for the more serious emotional scenes, and that's when it really shines. The series also has some pretty good themes, especially about perseverance and how some characters seem like they are beyond recovery in some aspects, but they later get their life back on the right track, and it's a pretty good message. It also has a lot of themes about identity and really kind of discovering who you are. Kind of cheesy, yeah, but it's handled pretty well in the series. As for the ending of the series, I think it was a very, very good ending. I think that I was expecting it to go one way, and it sort of went that way to some extent, but overall there were a lot of surprises at the end, and it did cap off on a really nice note. As I was getting towards the last 2 volumes of the series, I was expecting the end to be quite the downer. I thought I was gonna have to bust out the Sad Bar Simpson edits, that little peep, some XXX Tentacion, but overall, it was actually a pretty uplifting and optimistic ending, and overall, I thought it did that especially well considering that it had a lot of depressing and dark stuff before it. Overall, I think Welcome to the NHK is a very good series, but it's not a series that I can really recommend to too many people, even people in the community that I'm pretty good friends with, just because of how weird it is. And even though some of the really extreme moments with Sato could have been handled better, I do think that it really added on to his struggle to become normal, and it made it a much harder journey than it seemed like at the start. And this can sound pretty weird to say, but the series reminded me of a combination of Strawberry 100% mixed with The Flowers of Evil. and those series are completely different from one another. But this series, it's pretty strange, so it kind of works. I might be the only one who sees that, but I kind of noticed that through reading the series. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to give me a big ol' slap on that like button, a subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subscribers. Drop a comment. Let's get to 2,000 comments. And overall, share this with your friends, and I will see you guys in the next video.
I've done 2 grades for us, my dear. I can't pretend that I was perfect leaving you